we begin our day with reading the text. As we discussed in our last slide, the lines told by the famous poet Pablo Neruda, only poetry is clairvoyant, he said. Okay, just to tell you what was it. Clairvoyant means someone who can predict future. As I told you, poetry has the power, or poetry can also be told to be fortune teller because poetry can tell you or can predict what is going to happen in the future. We have seen so many poems written, right? The poems which tell us so many things which is still happening now. If you see a daffodil dancing, right? That's a personification. You still see plants and all they are dancing, right? There are many things on animals. So if a poet has written a poem on animals 10 years before, the theme which he might have taken, okay? Say for example, the kind of attitude human beings have towards animals. This is not going to change, right? Today also there will be some people who are kind to animals and there might be few who might not be kind to animals. So there are certain things, which the poet feels only poetry has the potential to predict the future. So the lines in the text, okay? After lunch during the stroll along the Ramblas, it is a place in Barcelona. I lagged behind with Frofida so that we could renew our memories with no other ears listening. So the author is taking a stroll with Frofida and he wants no one to listen to them. Okay? She told me that she had sold her properties in Austria and retired to Oporto in Portugal, where she lived in a house that she described as a fake castle on a hill from which one could see all the way to the Americas. Although she did not say so, her conversation made it clear that dream by dream she had taken over the entire fortune of the patrons in Vienna. That did not surprise me, however, because I had always thought her dreams were no more than a stratagem for surviving. This particular line, please mark it down in your text if you have one, is very, very, very important. I had always thought her dreams were no more than a stratagem for surviving. What is the author telling you here? The author tells you that he always thought that Profida's dreams were no more than a stratagem for surviving. Because she did that to survive, right? And I told her so. She laughed with a irresistible laugh. Okay, so there is a quote. You are as impudent as ever, she said, and said no more, because the rest of the group had stopped to wait for Neruda to finish talking to the parrots. Okay, when we resumed our conversation, Profida changed the subject. By the way, she said, you can go back to Vienna now. Only then did I realize that 13 years had gone by since our first meeting. Now Profida tells the author that now since so many years have passed, you can go to Vienna if you want. Remember before she told her that you need to leave Vienna, and that's the reason why the poet or the author of this story leaves the place, right? But now she tells him if you want, now you can go back to Vienna. Okay? To this, the reply given by the author is very important. To this, the author says, even if your dreams are false, I will never go back. I told her, just in case. See, this particular line creates suspicion in the mind of the readers. Did he really believe in the prophetic dreams of Profida, which made him go back to Rome? Why did he leave Vienna? Okay, so the reply which he gives is even if your dreams are false. So he says that even if your dreams are false, I will never go back. Okay, so he's planning to never go back to Vienna. Okay, whether the dreams are true or false, it doesn't matter to him now. He's planning not to go back to Vienna. At 3 o'clock, we left her to accompany Pablo Neruda to his sacred siesta. Siesta, as you know, is afternoon nap, which he took in our house after solemn preparations that in some way recall the Japanese tea ceremony. See, the mention of Japanese tea ceremony is because Japanese tea ceremony are very detailed ones. Okay, some windows had to be opened and others closed to achieve the perfect degree of warmth, and there had to be a certain kind of light from a certain direction and absolute silence. Neruda fall asleep right away and woke 10 minutes later, as children do when we least expected it. He appeared in the living room refreshed and with the monogram of the pillowcase imprinted on his cheek. So what we see that here is that after lunch, the author takes a stroll with Frofida and finds out that she had managed to take the property from the Viennese family, right? She tells him that He can go back to Vienna now. To this, the author replies that even if her dreams are false, he would never go back. See, this line is very important. This particular line you need to write in your answer. I keep on saying key points, key points, key points. This is a very important key point, right? He replies that even if her dreams were false, he would never go back. The author then leaves her to accompany Neruda back to his house for his siesta. Okay? So Neruda is not happy and he fusses over the temperature and light in his room. And once satisfied with the changes, he falls asleep right away. Right? So 10 minutes later, he walks into the living room refreshed. He announces that he dreamt that the woman who dreams was dreaming about him. There is some light-hearted banter on this, and the matter is soon forgotten.
We stop here for a while and ponder on these two questions, which I know everyone knows for sure. The first question is, how did Pablo Neruda know that somebody behind him was looking at him? This is a very simple question, right? I explained it. I assume that you people already know. Let's discuss this during our Google Meet. Okay. The second question is, how did Pablo Neruda counter Fraufida's claims to clairvoyance? Okay. This is something you will have to relate, to Pablo Neruda's view. What did he believe? What is clairvoyant, right? There's a line I told you, remember? Pablo Neruda always believed that only poetry is clairvoyant. Later that evening, we find that Pablo Neruda boards his ship and the author takes leave of him and he goes in search of Frauda, right? He finds her on the tourist deck. She too had taken a siesta. As you know, the poet Pablo Neruda also had taken a siesta, right? She tells him that she had dreamt that the poet was dreaming about her. Noticing the amazement on the author's face, she quickly justifies herself, saying that some dreams do slip in that have nothing to do with real life. The author never thought about her after that till the Havana tragedy. So we find that in the evening, when Neruda boards the ship, the author goes in search of Frauda and he finds her on the tourist deck and she tells him that she too has taken a siesta and she dreamt about the poet Pablo Neruda who was dreaming about her. I would like to read the text here. At 3 o'clock, we left her to accompany Pablo Neruda to his sacred siesta, which he took in our house after solemn preparations, okay, that in some way recall the Japanese tea ceremony. Okay, I dreamt about that woman who dreams, he said. Matilde wanted him to tell her his dream. I dreamt she was dreaming about me, he said. That's right out of Borges, I said. He looked at me in disappointment. Has he written it already? If he hasn't, he will write it sometime, I said. It will be one of his labyrinths. Labyrinth is a maze, confusing, which is puzzling, right? Labyrinth. As soon as he boarded the ship at 6 that evening, Neruda took his leave of us, sat down at an isolated table, and began to write verses in the green ink he used for drawing flowers and fish and birds. Okay? At that time, we looked for Frauda and found her at last on the tourist deck, just as we were about to leave without saying goodbye. She too had taken a siesta. I dreamt about the poet, she said. In astonishment, I asked her to tell me her dream. I dreamt he was dreaming about me, she said, and my look of amazement disconcerted her. What did you expect? Sometimes, with all my dreams, one slips in that has nothing to do with real life. So she's saying that, why are you looking so disconcerted? Sometimes my dream slips in that has nothing to do with real life. Sometimes I just dream and that has got no connection with real life. Okay? I never saw her again, or even wondered about her until I heard about the snake ring on the woman who died in the Havana Rivera disaster, and I could not resist the temptation of questioning the Portuguese ambassador when he happened to meet some months later at a diplomatic reception. The ambassador spoke about her with great enthusiasm and enormous admiration. You cannot imagine how extraordinary she was, he said. He could have been obliged to write a story about her, and he went on in the same tone with surprising details, but without the clue that would have allowed me to come to a final conclusion. In concrete terms, I asked at last, what did she do? Nothing, he said, with a certain disenchantment, which means free from false belief. She dreamed. Okay, so we come to this part of the text, rather the last part of the text, where the author tells you that he never saw her again or even wondered about her until that incident in the Havana Rivera disaster. You know, even though Flora has had so much power and control the whole family, she could even let the author out of a city, but she could not predict her own fate, right? That is the irony of the story. A person who can predict everyone's future could not predict her own future. Now, you might be asking me, ma'am, what exactly are dreams? We know dreams are an extremely significant part of a person's subconscious. Dreams are a mere reflection of what is going to happen in our real lives. However, the dream world is a complete alternate universe, a universe where anything is possible and where magic realism can be most prominent. Okay, so dreams are a part of our subconscious mind. Whatever we think might get reflection in our dreams, but dream world is a completely different world, right? What we cannot achieve in real life, maybe we see that in our dreams, but in this kind of universe magic realism is most prominent. So that is why the author has used the technique of magic realism in this text. Okay, this particular line or the quote from your text is important. I never saw her again or even wondered about her until I heard about the snake ring on the woman who died in the Havana Rivera disaster. So dreams hold power. This could be one of your important themes of the story. As a recurring theme throughout the story, we realize that dreams are a very relevant part of our lives. They hold a lot of knowledge and almost have a hidden meaning behind them. The deeper you go into the person's brain, the more control you have over them, as can be seen in the case of Frofida, right? The way she could control the minds of the Viennese family, right? The simple girl controlled a whole family, and her word moved a man with the knowledge from her dreams alone. Dreams sometimes say what the people can't. It's very true, right? Sometimes you want to say something, but you cannot say that. But maybe all those things you could achieve in your dreams. This can be another takeaway from your prose. There's always a way out of a bad situation, as can be seen from the character Frofida, right? This lady started her life as below average, struggling with a huge family, struggling to make her living and earn a living. The magic realism in this is that she ends up selling her dreams to make a living. Who sells their dreams? See, she did not give up. She was having problem. So once she realized that she had a talent of telling her dreams, interpreting her dreams, she started selling her dreams. Okay. She had been the third of 11 children. Okay. And as soon as she learned to speak, she was instituted with the fine custom in her family of telling dreams before breakfast, the time when their oracular qualities are preserved in their purest form. Her family was very traditional family, very superstitious family. So when they all sat for breakfast, she used to tell them her dreams. So now from the past we come to the present. They went their separate ways and never saw each other until the fateful day of the accident in the Havana Rivera Hotel. The ring on the dead woman's finger revived the narrator's memories from Frida. Now from the past we come to the present. Okay, so it is after the death of Frida that he happens to meet the Portuguese ambassador, her last employer, and puts him a question. He had to inquire about her with the Portuguese ambassador, her last employer. So at a diplomatic event, he met him and talked about her. The ambassador was enchanted with her powers and talents. It was not that he was not very much impressed with Frida. Even the ambassador was very pleased with Frida and her talents. The narrator asked him one last question. What did she do for you? The answer was something he had expected and had heard from Frida herself. She dreamt. So this brings us to the end of the chapter. So we see that after the death of Frida, the author happens to meet this ambassador, the last employer of Frida. So he puts him a question, what did she do for you? And as expected, she tells him that she dreamt. Now today is the last day. We wind up with I Sell My Dreams. I assume that you are thorough with your lesson. Your questions, burning questions, your doubts, you can ask your teacher in Google Meet. Any doubt, you can always ask us, me and Suma ma'am. So looking forward to meeting in Google Meet today. Happy learning.